They can eliminate my job. They can eliminate the whole company. Do you understand? So to some extent, a lot of us are put in these vulnerable positions where we are impacted by the choices and the actions of these individuals that have been positioned as our economic gods. They can make your life wonderful or miserable, because when you're teaching each other how to fish and you're focused on going to the pond every day to fish, you're not even thinking like, well, what happens if suddenly the person who owns this pond puts up a sign that says nobody can fish here anymore? Well, then you're kind of asked out, you're kind of done. You're kind of stuck. So this is why it's absolutely imperative that every child in our community knows something about ownership and why ownership matters, why ownership is very important, why ownership really is an incredibly important part of source of power. It's if I am if I need a ride, somebody can give me a ride. Someone could teach me how to drive a car, so I can drive where I want to go. But then I have to also ask, well, who owns this car? Who gets to decide, when we're gonna go, and which route we're gonna take, and who's gonna drive the car? Right. So you want to go to all those levels. You want that to start when kids are young. You start that when they're children. You don't start that when they're older. You don't have these. See, a lot of you are here because you had your eureka moment when you were like 35 years old. Maybe you were 40. I don't have a lot of 20 somethings. I mean, I hate saying it like this, but like, but I'm sure I have no idea. I told my wife, I said, when I go over to InvestFest and they have a bunch of 20 somethings, I don't even know who's gonna know me and who's not. I have no idea. I just because what happens is that I believe that the system is designed such that we don't figure this stuff out until we're old, until you're like 35 or 40 years old. Some of you are great grandparents in here. Some of you are grandparents, and I just think that this is what causes us to be stuck. I think that we're hit by something. I talk about this in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. It's called economic immaturity. I believe the system is designed and rigged to keep us economically immature for as long as possible. When you're economically immature, you don't understand how the whole system works. You understand only your role in it. And because no one really introduced you to the idea of financial consciousness, they didn't introduce you to that when you were young. But if you teach that to kids when they're little, then they kind of have just this massive head start, which allows them to have so much more say in their destiny. And this is not unprecedented. I mean, the Jewish community does it all the time. You know, Donald Trump's family did that. Donald Trump's father never talked to him about, you know, getting a job. he never he never sat around saying, hey son, if you work really hard, then good things are gonna happen. They're gonna give you raises and promotions. He said, nah, son, we're gonna own the company and you get to decide who gets a raise and who gets a promotion. And it's not because he earned it, it was because somebody else earned it and somebody passed it down to him. And I'm gonna just tell you the truth. That's exactly the way it's supposed to be. I know I don't know if you like the guy or not. I don't care if you like him, but that's how power doesn't really care like what we think is good or bad, or who we think are good people and bad people, or who deserves it and who doesn't. Power just exists. It's just something that exists in itself. And I think that overall, I think you should really pay attention to how wealthier families kind of operate with this. They're not really sitting and thinking about the things that we think about, and they're not sort of looking at the economic system as a sort of impenetrable perfect force that where we're just trying to find our way to get in to fit in, right? This is what integration kind of does to us. Integration kind of drives us to this point where we're like, oh, here's a big building called the American economy. How do we integrate into that? How do I just blend in as a black man?